Hello everyone.
Hello, sir.
Give a few more minutes for others to join in. In the meantime, you have any questions, anything which you want to clarify?
Hello.
Yeah.
I
Any
was looking at
topics?
videos, and I don't think you covered all the use case narratives.
Yes, the relationships still are pending. The topic is not complete yet.
No, I was talking about, I think,
Hmm.
just a second, I'll just pull it up. So I think cross references and was something that was left out.
Yeah. So that's basically the relationships. So there are three types of references.
Okay.
So we call them as relationships as well.
Okay.
So that's one topic which is still pending. But yeah, I mean it's a little advanced topic. I thought first let's understand the core part of the use case, and then we'll look at the relationships.
Okay.
Yeah, Raju, I had a question. When we find there is a gap, we have done a gap analysis, then how do we proceed? To whom we should tell there is a gap found, or how we report about it?
Now that's that broadly we have these two projects. One is a process modeling. We call that as a process modeling or business process engineering, and the other one is a new system development. So typical new system development will follow the process what we are learning, right? Now the process modeling would primarily have these three phases, right? So first we understand how the current system is working, right? So we will use a reverse engineering technique, and then uh, observation technique and whatever, and then we would document the current process as it is. As this process is like this, so we'll list that down. That's the first section, right? And then we would figure out, okay, so obviously there would be some pain points or opportunities to in the current way we are doing things. Okay, so there would be another section listing out that. Okay, then you would come up with your final section which says what your to be model or your future state should be, which would address those gaps, right? So again, the future state can also be represented using the use case diagram and all, right? So if you have to answer your question, the first there would be additional two sections in the case where you're trying to improvise a system. So first you will document the current system, the way it is working, and then you'll find out what are the pain points in it, right? And then go ahead with your final solution, which will list down how you would improvise and then address those gaps. Okay, so when I talk about the BRDs, I would cover that. Okay, so that's another thing which you have to look at. So most of the times the process modeling and all we do using the flow charts and swim lanes and all. So we'll cover those topics as well. Okay, so that's still is pending. We have not covered all ways of documenting the requirements. Okay. The primary way of illustrations would be reverse engineering and observation technique for the gap analysis kind of problems. Right? So you're trying to understand how it works. Okay. All right, let's start the question, session today. Like we plan to have a discussion on the interviews and see how should you prepare for the interviews. Right? So let's go topic by topic. What kind of interview questions could come in? So this also, would be the way you would have contributed in right from the start of the project till yes, you've documented, right? Now, I'll only ask the questions from where we have already covered them. Okay, already the topics that are already covered. Okay, the rest of them, I mean, once we complete the whole course, then we'll have another mock interview kind of session there. I'll ask the questions from the rest of the topics as well. Okay. So again, feel free to answer. I'll just pose the question and then take initiatives to answer, right? So don't fear that, okay, no, is my answer right or wrong, and don't worry about it, right? So we are all here to learn, and nobody is going to judge anybody, right? So the more actively you participate, the more benefit you would get. Okay, so look at it that way rather than just be a passive listener. Okay, see, again, most of your interviews would be mostly practical oriented rather than theoretical, right? So nobody is going to test your theoretical understanding or your definitions of a particular topic. Like, nobody is going to ask you what is traceability, or what is a RSA matrix, or what is a use case, right? So these kind of questions would be very rare. Okay, you may still get it, but I would say, a significant lot of the interviewers would want to understand, how is it practically used, right? So, conceptually you're good, but have you applied that and practically used it? So that is what they would test. Okay, and since you'll all be putting a lot experience, right? So a lot of your questions would be based on the resumes that you put in. Right? So the questions would be like, how did you gather the requirements for this project? Okay, so it would be that way. Okay, and now you have to build a story. You have to clearly understand how what would be the process for which you've used for your requirements, the approach step by step. Like, we started off by reading these documents, and then so most of your questions would be like that. So don't expect that there would be questions on this concept and they would ask me definitions. Right? So that would rarely happen. Okay, and nobody is going to ask you definitions. Right? So it's just your understanding of the topic is what they would look at. Okay. So having said that, so today's session, since we're not going specific to your resume, we'll broadly understand or try to understand what kind of questions would come in, and what and then we'll look at how to respond to them as well. Okay? Again, but when you get your resume, it has to be specific to your resume. You have to pick up some project and then say, in this project we did it in this way. So that's how your responses should be. Okay. The other thing, what I would say is, see, when you're attending the interviews, preferably if it's over the telephone, right? Record the interview, or at least take notes of what questions are coming. Okay, so you might not convert the first interview. Okay, that's still okay. But the moment you start capturing your questions, right? So your first interview, second interview, make sure that you cover or document all your questions. So you'll have your own specific database of questions which will be asked for your resume. Okay, and a lot of those questions tend to repeat. So since your resume would be there, it would be the same for all the interviews. Questions tend to repeat. Okay, so even if like 50-60% of the questions repeat, and you are prepared for those questions in the next interview, right? Now there's a very good chance of conversion, right? So consciously make sure that you capture all your questions, and then be prepared for the next interview for those questions, right? So that's one advice would definitely be helpful. So just don't forget about once the interview is over, stop thinking about it, right? So make sure that you put in that effort, even for at later stage as well, when you want to apply for other jobs, right? So this would definitely be helpful. So put those list of questions which are specific to your resume, right? What kind of questions are being asked on the resume. So they tend to repeat. The second advice is, go through the job description clearly. Right? So there would be a lot of hints on what kind of questions you could get while looking at the job description. Because see, they're looking for a specific requirement. Okay, so they will clearly call out, this is what exactly what I want. Right? So if you can ensure that you cover all that experience, all that skill set that you have, which meets those requirements, which meets the job description, there will be a good chance of conversion again. Okay, so ensure that you do these two things when you're preparing for your interviews. Make sure you list down your questions, and then be prepared for that interview by looking at the job description on what kind of requirements are this guy asking, right? So some of them specifically ask about, I want good experience in use cases and UML. So, the project could be in a waterfall model. So all he is interested in a waterfall, right? So there could be some project in agile mode. So this guy would say, no, I want the user stories to be, I want the BA to be a expert in user stories, right? So, you'd get that clarity. Okay, what topic is a focus to be on, right? And what topic I should be well prepared, right? So you'll get pointers. Then they could also ask, you should have a basic understanding of Visual, right? Or some other open tool as well, if they would say. You can be prepared for those as well. Right? It won't take much time. Maybe a few minutes on YouTube, you get to learn those tools. Right? So the conceptually, if you understand a use case, it's drawing it is not a big deal. Right? It will take you 5 minutes, be it in Word, PowerPoint, or Visual. It won't take right. But it will give you that confidence. The moment you look at what kind of tools they're asking and then you're prepared for them, you'll be in a much better position to answer that. Okay. So that's some guidelines on cracking your interviews. So let's look at each topic and then see what kind of questions would come in, and how we should answer. Right. So first session I talked about the industry overview and the SDLC types. Right. So there could be broad questions on how was your team structured, or which team are you in, right? So broadly this question would be on whether you are part of the client. There are two ways in which you could go as a business analyst. You're part of the client team itself, or you're part of a IT services company. Like you could be with IBM, or you could directly be with let's say Walmart. Okay. So either way you could work as a business analyst. So there could be broadly questions on who are you reporting to, and how is the team structured, which team are you in, right? And so there could be questions on that, right? And this would be a very specific question. So I hope you guys are taking notes of the questions, right? So please do that, because it will help you once you put in your resume. You could get that clarity on how you are going to respond to those questions. Okay. Since you have a question,
can you please repeat the question?
Yeah. So broadly they would want to understand how is your team structured. So you would ask who are you reporting to, or what is the current team structure, right? So there are broadly two ways, right? So you're either part of a services company. You would say I was as part of this IBM, and then I was onboarded onto this project, and started off with this, with the project planning and all that, right? But in case you are with the customer, right? So that ideally, there's a good chance that you could be hired directly by the client. Okay. So some of the organizations have the business analyst in house. Those kind of situations, you would report in. You would be part of the dev team or so, or a business development business analyst team, which would work out on the in-house projects, right? The broad question could be on how is your team structure, or who are you reporting to, and all that. Okay. The other questions which would come in would be they could pick up a project from your resume and then say how was this executed. So, you have to again look at your, specifically say whether it's a waterfall model, or was it an iterative model, right? Or was it a agile project? So they would want to understand your, whether you gather the difference between these projects, right? So when you get a kind of question like this, like, how was this project executed, right? Or how did you deliver this? How was this project delivered? Right? So they primarily want to know how the project was executed, right? So they won't ask you, tell me what is a waterfall model, or tell me a iterative model. So those kind of questions will not come in. Okay. So look at your resume, pick up a project, and then say, okay, I'll say that this is a this have executed in a waterfall, or this as an iterative, and then it has 2 phases or 3 phases, and then each phase had this scope, right? So you'll have to bring out that knowledge when you are responding to your questions. Okay. So a lot of would be application oriented. That's the reason I'm not directly posing question or asking questions to you. It won't be testing your theoretical knowledge. Right? So a lot of them would not ask, explain me what is iterative model, right? Though conceptually you should understand to, explain it to answer that question from an interviewer. He would ask, how did you execute this project? You have to say, it's a iterative prototyping model. We worked in multiple phases, and each phase I've also used prototyping, right? So then, so those are the kind of questions it should come. So broadly, he would like to understand your team structure. He would like to understand how the projects was executed, right? So those we have understood in the part 1 of the course. Okay. So those 2 I think are the primary kind of questions I expect from an interviewer. Again, conceptually they will not check your knowledge, right? So they'll want to link it to your projects and then ask. So you have to be prepared. Yeah, Manju.
Yeah, the thing is, like, I wanted you to take the interviews for all of these guys.
So
you can ask them the simple questions, whatever you've been teaching for so many days. So
right, Manju.
pick up the topic from there.
Yeah. Now there are 2 ways to look at it, Manju. Now they're not going to ask the questions directly on particular topic, like tell me waterfall model, right? So while that would be there, I'll ask those questions. I'm clearly telling them this is how the questions would come in, and then I'll spend some time asking questions as well, right? So I'll definitely make sure that. But this is more like guiding them on how to crack the interviews as well as then taking the interview. So it will help them understand what kind of questions they would expect in the interviews.
I can understand that thing, but the only thing what I wanted from from all my employees was they need to know the whole concept what you taught for so many days. So whatever topic you get through, we want to make sure that these guys understood it. It doesn't matter. You are asking the same question to everyone. I just want to figure out that everyone knows this. The answer for a simple whatever you thought before. So.
Yeah. So that's right, Manju. But see, I can ask some questions, but it should be relevant also, right? I mean, later on when they actually go for interviews, they should have a clarity on what kind of questions they would expect, right? So that's a context which I'm giving. And let me ask a few questions as well on each topic. And I'll do that.
Yeah.
But I thought each topic wise, I'm trying to summarize what kind of questions that they would expect, and then conceptually also I'll test them. Okay. So since you've asked that, I'll ensure that it will conceptually also.
Okay. Sure. Thanks.
Yeah. So yeah, the first part, I think broadly you'll get those questions. They will try to understand the team structure and then the kind of projects that you have worked on, the kind of SDLC models.
Raju, what Manjur is trying to say here is like, if they are clear with the concept, then they can relate it to their project.
Yeah, I get that, Pooja. I get that.
Yeah, so that's why he's saying, like, he's insisting that you should ask questions.
Right. So let me ask questions. I'll leave it to you who wants to answer. I won't pick people. So unless anybody of answer, if I don't get any response, then maybe I'll pick somebody. But it's open. I mean, don't hold back. You can answer questions. Let me start with the first one, right? So I think right. So what is an SOW? Statement of work.
Statement of work.
SOW is your document which tells what to do.
SOW statement of work is a high-level document which will just portray in few lines that exactly what the client is expecting to do.
Right. Yeah. Broadly, all of you are right. So just use this term scope, right? So it basically tells at a high level what the client wants to do, right? So it's basically SOW is the other thing what you need to mention is the two key things. One is it's a contractual document, right? So it's a legal document. So both the parties sign off on it, and so it's contractually binding. That this is what has to be delivered, and both the parties agree that these are the activities and this is the scope that has to be delivered. Okay, so broadly, yes, what you have mentioned is the client tells us what needs to be done, and that is there. But use that term. It captures the exact scope and the various aspects of the project, like the timelines, the cost, and all that, right? And it's a legal document, contractual, not legal. Call it as a contractual document. Okay. Then talk about the various types of SDLC models, right? Now, what is the difference between a waterfall and an iterative model?
Can tell about waterfall. And waterfall, it is a non-iterative life cycle. That is like something which gets compiled once and it does not break the project into multiple pieces. It is the oldest and simplest way of implementing any software development life cycle because here it requires high amount of documentation, and documentation is essential part of the year. And the main disadvantage of waterfall model is like the client, he has very low visibility, almost none in terms of what has been developed till the very end or the actual product comes out. So
what are the phases of a typical waterfall model?
Waterfall model, it starts with project initiation, then requirement definition, then it has been followed by the design phase, building phase, then the testing, implementation, and then the maintenance. We cannot go reverse back in the waterfall model.
No, it's not like that. It's not that you cannot go back. Maybe it would be a little more. You'll have to spend a little more effort, right? So it's not like we cannot add additional requirements later.
Yeah,
it's just that model would not be effective in that kind of scenario, right?
Right.
So it's the simplest model. The waterfall is the simplest model, right? It has a and when do you use a waterfall model?
When there are short terms of project, probably uses waterfall model, or the client will have a proper visibility as what he wants, and the requirements should get frozen, a solid baseline. That time we can use the waterfall model.
Yeah, let's do a round robin because all of them should get a chance, right? So I'll start off with Akhil. Let's go one by one because we're having multiple people talk. Okay, Akhil. Okay, the question to you. So when do you use an iterative model?
Iterative model, the main aspect of it is that the phases are in itself. So, for example, in waterfall, there's one big phase which starts from the initiation process to the end of the project. But in iterative model, each phase in itself is its own existence, and we generally use it when the timeline is much longer, and the users use it after each iteration.
Right. Good. So basically, if you have a long project, like if it's a big, the scope is too large that it might take some 2-3 years. You break it down into pieces and then work in phases. Each phase would deliver some functionality, and the advantage is that you'll have something to use much earlier. So maybe at the end of 6 months or 4 months or so. right? So that's the advantage of an iterative model. Okay. What is prototyping? Avi?
Prototyping is providing a diagram or a representation of what a final system would look like. So the features won't be active, but it gives a framework like how the final system would look.
So yeah, good response. You should also answer about when do you use prototyping and what is the advantage. So let me pose another question, follow-up question, right? When is prototyping? Did you use any prototyping for any of the projects? If so, in what context? Okay. So why would you use prototyping?
Can I say this, sir?
Yeah, go ahead.
We use prototyping because to show our customer that how would be his final outcome, or how would prototyping is nothing but an example that this will be your website or your application will look like. It could be a drawing, it could be drawing in a paper or in a paint, or it could be also be a example of it with the help of a designer.
Sorry, my call got disconnected, so I'm again in. Hello.
Yeah, that's okay. All right. So yeah, so
Prototyping is basically a visual representation of a UI for the customers to understand like how the system will actually look like.
right. I think broadly you guys are clear about that. I think Syed, Avi, and Pooja, all three of you are more or less clear on why we are using prototyping and all. Right. Now tell me the types of prototyping. So tell me the difference between a throwaway prototype and a
What is the
evolutionary
question?
prototype. Difference between a throwaway prototype and an evolutionary prototype. Naeem or Mustafa? I think we stopped over there, right? So the name itself, I think, is giving you indication of what it means, right? Or the question could be, where do you use a throwaway prototype? Have you created throwaway prototypes or evolutionary prototypes, right? So these are the various kind of questions which should come. So they might pick up a project and then say, how did you execute this project? Throwaway prototype or was it an evolutionary? Or do you know the difference between them? Yeah, can you go ahead?
I can try, yeah. So what I think, I'm not exactly sure, but a prototyping would be they build up a prototype in the first phase and then they stick to it right till the end. And the other one was, what was that?
Evolutionary.
Evolutionary would be basically they make a prototype and then they actually add features to it eventually and keep showing it to the customer and then into the end product.
Can I try this?
Yeah.
The throwaway prototype, it is like it is a kind of a model which will be eventually be discarded rather than becoming a part of the actual final software. We'll just use it. I mean, it will be just basic for the basic level. We'll be using it, and then later it will be discarded. The throwaway model. Whereas if you talk about the evolutionary prototype, it is to build a very robust prototype in a structured manner. and then we keep on constantly refining it. Like for example, if we are building up a website, so a developer might assist a BA, and then we would be building a UI, and then constantly we will be refining it in a structured manner. That is evolutionary prototype.
Right. So broadly, through a prototype is basically uh, is used to get a common understanding with the customer, right? So if I show you this is nothing but a through a prototype. Why? Because the only thing I've used for drawing this is because I want to get the same understanding. I want the customer also have to have the same understanding of how the system looks like, right? Now after the customer says, okay, I'm good with this, right? So this is of this is of not much use to me, right? I have to start the design process right from the fresh, right? So maybe I have to create that UI, screen using HTML and all, right? So all the work that I have put in drawing this would be discarded, would be thrown away. So that's the reason it's called as a throwaway prototype. So like Rupani, you mentioned it, you're right on that front, right? And in some cases, you want to have an exact view of how the final system would look like. So what do? You'll engage a developer right at the start, a UI developer, and then you'll ask him to create those screens, right? So effectively, you're creating the screens right upfront during the design phase itself. And once the customer says, I'm good with it, you'll actually use those screens also. You don't have to redevelop it, right? So that would be your evolutionary prototype. Since your requirements, that prototype is evolving into the final product, it's called as an evolutionary prototype. You get the difference now, right? So that's another question which could come in on prototypes. So be prepared as well. Right, so I think you have that broad understanding, but the refinement is needed when you are answering the question. Okay. So, what is the advantage of a prototype? I think we covered that question, right? So you guys answered. Whenever there is ambiguity or the customer is not clear about, the how the final system looks like, you tend to go for a prototype. We did cover it, right? Your spiral, we can ignore, there won't be any questions, right? So when do you go for products, or how would you figure out whether you have to develop it in house, or you should implement a product, right?
The question is not clear.
The question is, basically they would want to understand when would you use this product implementations, right? Broadly, the kind of context would be when let's say you're applying for and most of the times these questions would come in if you're working at the client location, right? A client wants to hire a business analyst directly, right? So they want to understand how would you figure out how to execute this project, right? So should we, looking at that broader requirement, you would want to understand whether you're going to suggest to develop this in house, or you're going to suggest buying a product and then implement it, right? So that's a broad reason why this question could come up. Okay. Now, when do you go for a product implementation, and when do you go for a in-house development? So that's the question which is, right? So should you go for a waterfall and then develop it yourself, or would you go for a product implementation? Yeah. All right. So let's do this thing. since I would want each one of you to answer the same question, even though it's repeating and all. I'll ask the same question. Make sure that each one of you answer one after the other, right? So that's how we'll work with this. I don't want to pick one and then the rest of it you'll be quiet. Right? Each one of them should answer the questions. Okay. Let's move on to the next topic and on the requirements plan exercise. Okay. Um, so specifically, tell me what is what is traceability, right? So let's start with the first person, Akhil. What is traceability?
Traceability would be basically it gives you a understand. It's a flow chart, not a flow chart, but it's basically gives you an understanding of what projects is going to be depending on another project and what when is it going to get finished. For example, if uh, some one project part of the project is getting finished and it depends on a previous project that has to be finished for this project.
I wouldn't say project, say it as requirement. I think it's
Okay.
great.
Okay.
Okay, one requirement or one phase. Okay,
Okay.
so there are two things. Avi,
And it,
yeah, I
and it
think
would,
that.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think broadly, I think you have answered that. So, I want all of you to answer the questions because,
Okay.
a lot of people are not answering, right? So, we'll go one by one. Everybody answer the same question. So, next one, Avi. So, tell me the answer for traceability. Right? So, the same question, each one of you go one after the other. Right? Zakil has answered. Avi, next Fahad would answer. Right? We'll go one after the other. Same question. Tell me about traceability. Just wanted see the intention is to understand whether you're following through the sessions or not, right? So yeah, go ahead, Avi.
I would say traceability is like how the requirements are linked to each other and um, like are they satisfied by the requirements, functional requirements.
Okay, I'll anyway tell you the right answer, but let me hear the other people also
Okay.
tell me about traceability. Fahad, please go ahead. Fahad, can you hear me? Fahad, can you hear me? If you're talking, you're on mute. Yeah, now I think we can talk. Go ahead.
So can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, my name is Fahad, but Mustafa is beside me, so I don't know what's wrong with my phone. So I think for fulfilling the customer requirements, the traceability we need. Hello.
Yeah, sorry, can you repeat that? I think I missed it. Or
Hello. I think for tracing all the requirements.
hmm.
Hello, sir. Something is problem with it.
Hey, one of you be on mute and then talk. If both of you are sitting next to next and then talking, there would be this. Put one of the speaker on mute. Yes, one of the mic on mute. Yeah, now I think we can talk. All right, go ahead, Fahad. So use one mic to talk because if you're sitting next to next, you'll get those disturbances. So Fahad, yeah, go ahead with the response. So what is traceability? I mean,
So
Yeah, that's okay. I think now we can hear you. Please go ahead.
Hello.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I think for fulfilling the requirement of the customer or for verifying all the
भाई बात भाई
the traceability.
All right. Okay. Next person, Mohsin, do you want to answer that?
Yes, sir. I would say traceability ensures.
Rest of them, please be on mute because you're not talking.
Just a second.
We'll go one by one.
Traceability ensures that the requirement is traced back to the objective which the client has given to you, and I would say that would make sure that the only requirements are delivered, and yeah, the required requirement which client has given to you, that is taken in the process. I mean, it traced back to its objective for what we are making this.
Okay. Mustafa, your turn.
Yes, sir, I've done it.
All right. Naeem?
hello
Yeah, go ahead.
yes sir
If you're in the same room, please only use one mic, or the rest of them be on mute. Okay?
yes
So
sir
if you are using multiple mics and multiple speakers, then you'll get this interference.
so I think from the word traceability you could say that you're nothing but tracing all the customer requirements. You're making sure that you are fulfilling every need of your customer, like you're tracing everything is going on in the right way. I think that.
Okay. So Naeem, your turn.
Yes, sir. I think traceability is the ability of verifying the customers' requirements and which application of an atom, and we should document it. We should document it all the requirements of the customers. I'm done, sir. Actually, could you please explain me a little more?
Yeah, I'll do that.
I think it's a documented, recorded identification like that. We should document all the requirements, whatever the customer needed from us.
Okay. Pramod, your turn. Pramod, you there? Hello? Pramod? All right. Pooja?
Yeah. Traceability, as the name signifies, it's a relationship, it's a matrix that shows the relationship between the requirement and the test cases. Traceability basically here means relationship traceability matrix, RTM, and that's how it is.
Yeah, Rupali, go ahead.
According to me, traceability metrics, it's like, there are three kinds of requirements we have, which are broadly classified as business requirements, user requirements, and solution requirements. Whereas business requirements, it is a high level statements comes under it, like visions and scope, it has been covered, and these requirements, they cannot be directly implemented. So somehow we have to trace it till the solution requirements, okay? And in between, there falls the user requirements. which acts as a bridge between the business requirements and solution requirements. These user requirements express how user needs to interact with the solutions to meet the business needs. And finally, there are solution requirements, which which depicts the system behavior and the conditions, and they can be directly implemented into the system. So all these requirements, that is the business requirement, user requirements, and solution requirements, they are linked together in the traceability metrics. And in this way, we are able to achieve the fully traceable sets of the requirements. Suppose if the solution requirement doesn't match with either of the user requirement or the business requirement, then that gets removed. And in this way, we can keep track from starting business requirement till the end solution requirements, whether we have covered the full scope of the solution. According to me, that is what is all comes under traceability metrics.
Okay, next person, Tulsi.
Yes, sir. Traceability, it is the connectedness of scope and requirements among all the project documents. And traceability, it keeps project scope and business requirements in synchronized way. And traceability provides the ability to find the origin of each business requirement in the approved project scope. And you can say that many organizations manage traceability very carefully using traceability metrics. Traceability metric which has a columns for each project document, like scope document, business rule document.
Yeah.
That's
Broadly, I think it's insane. But I think a lot of you need to improve. I think, while a few of them have answered it, right? A couple of things, of feedback on this question, or rather on it, right? So, you're aware of the concept, right? So, but the way you're articulating, you're expressing, or the response what is coming out is still not clear, right? So you need to work on the way you're expressing your response, right? So the articulation has to be clear, right? So it just doesn't help you if you just know the topic, if you understand the concept, but you're not able to express that, right? From clearing an interview point of view, should be you should be able to articulate it in such a way that you're able to bring across a point that I understand this topic, right? So while I could gather that you understand that, but if you are not communicating it properly, you're not expressing it properly, that would work against you. Okay. Next question. So anyway, the topic is clearly explained. You know what kind of question would come in, so you need to be prepared for that, right? So the people who have not answered it correctly. Next question, I think we'll go from the bottom. Tulsi, it's for you. Explain the change management process and why do we need it? Change management. So what is the process? Yeah, Tulsi, start. We'll start from bottom now. Hello? Guys, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right. The question is on change management process. So please explain the change management process.
Change management process is something like you keep a matrix to know like everything is going on. Excuse 1 second. Yeah, change management is something like that if there is any changes come up, like if customer tell you to do something, change in your process, in his requirement, so just to keep every eye on everything, you will use this process though.
Tell me the steps involved in a change management process. What do you do once you get a request from the customer to make a change? What do you do?
I would say first we will ask for a change request form and we'll justify like why the change is required. And
who fills in the change request form?
The customer?
Yes. So what happens after the change request is form is filled in? The next step.
So like we would need to check like what are the changes required and how the cost is related to it, and do the analysis like
We'll analyze the requirement.
timeline and like is that like goes with the budget and design according to the timelines,
All right.
and
After that,
what would be the impact of it? Are there any additional effort required? Does it affect the time?
okay. Okay. I think that's good one. After that, what do you do? After you analyze the requirement and then figure out whether you take out or not. So you start developing it.
No. First, we would like ensure is it agreed to be accepted or not, and
I think you send it to the senior management and see if they approve it or not.
What is that team generally called? So we have that.
change authorization board.
Yeah. So some organizations have a change control board. Some call it as change authorization board. So, but there's a set of people identified, right? So you need to be clear of who is that person who is going to approve it. Okay. So yeah, broadly you'll take approval. Okay. So you need to figure out based on the project, team who is basically authorized to take that decision. You'll send it to them. After that, what? Then I think you'd go on with the development based on the decision. You'd either go for the development of it, or if the senior manager says no, you don't have to push it further. You'd leave it there. Yeah. So that's broadly, I think, is a change management process. Naeem, you want to answer that?
So the last thing I think we do in the integrate learning and result, and we conduct a closeout and evaluation.
Yeah,
like
I think you do that as well, right?
Yep.
So tell me the complete process. Tell me the complete change management process again. So just that I just want to hear it from everyone. So
first of all, I think we have to do the conduct an assessment whether the change is required or not. Then when
before
we have
that, what do you do before that? So when the request comes, how should the request come in? Right? What all details?
First of all, we have to take the change, the form. Form should be filled up by the customers and clients, and then we have to take it to the management, and we pinpoint the opportunities. Then in second phase, I think we should clarify the roles and establish measurement regarding the change. After that, we should talk to the implementation team so that they can communicate with the SMEs. After that, take action and communicate with the management.
So who is going to take that action?
I think all the I think something I recalling something gap like that gaps.
Right, but are you going to decide whether the
no
change should
BA should not BA is not responsible. BA is not responsible for changing any kind of process.
Okay.
It's the high level management should decide.
Right. So I think broadly you're aware of the topic, but work on the articulation, right? So
yes,
it's not just knowing the topic, but answering it as well, right? So
okay,
you know that change request comes in, then you analyze it, then you send it to the senior management, your change control board for authorization. So they would decide what to do, and then you would pass it. So unless you articulate it, you're trying to explain that, but you're not getting the right words, right?
yes.
So work on that articulation.
Okay.
Yeah, Tulsi, your Mic is not working? You want to answer that question? Okay. Yeah, I think go ahead with your response. I'll read that and then look at it. Okay. Tell me the next question. Tell me what kind of documents do you read before you start the project? Right? What kind of I mean, how do you start about your requirement illustration? Yeah, Akhil, you want to start there?
You first understand what the project is about, maybe from third-party information, or looking at the document if the project has actually been implemented, depending upon what kind of project. If it's from scratch, then you understand, you meet with the SMEs and you figure out what the requirements are going to be. And that could be done through document analysis, interviews, observation, or focus group, or reverse engineering.
Okay, then let me clarify the question. So I just want to understand what kind of documents you would read before you start your illustration. So that's usually would be the first step, right? So is it just the SOW, or you think that any other documents are relevant?
If the application has already been set up, then you read the existing document, existing BRD, and if it isn't, then you read the SOW.
Okay. What else? What else? What else? Let's say you put in a project in your resume which says some compliance project, right? Or yeah, let's take a compliance project.
Yeah. So like the case we did, that was about the AMP compliance. So the first thing we do is find out what the compliance requirements are, and we find that out from the internet maybe, or third-party sources if we can have access to them.
Yeah. Within the organization also, what documents would be there?
I'm not exactly sure.
Next person. Yeah. Avi?
So I would say if you are asking for a compliance, then there would be the requirement for the regulatory document, right?
Right. What else? Yeah, that's definitely there. So Akhil said you read through the SOWs, earlier documents. Then you said regulatory requirements. What else?
Can you repeat your question?
I'm saying what kind of documents would you refer when you are in the project? I mean, what are the kind of documents which are already available which you can look at to understand the requirements?
The SOPs and
yeah, so that's another good source. Standard operating procedures, training guides, or any internal memos which are explaining about. Yeah. All right. Let me broadly that understanding. So prototyping, I think we have covered it. So tell me about the JAT session, Mustafa.
JAD session would be something like a focus group. I mean, like you're fulfilling all the requirements. So it will be just like a group, like, you will be fulfilling all the development requirements in it. Like,
what would be there in JAD session?
In your JAD session, like your SMEs, you and the persons who will be handling your project, like the designer, the architecture would not be there, like a programmer won't be there in the JAD session, but the person who can come up in ideas with, they will be available in JAD session, which would be like your SME, you.
So what do you discuss in a JAD session? Right. So so if you are conducting a JAD session, what all would happen in that?
I mean, when you make planning, how to accomplish your you make sure you do planning basically how step by step how to execute your whole thing, whole project.
Then what? Anybody else want to answer that question?
Can I answer?
Yeah, go ahead.
JAT session, basically it is called as a joint application development. Well, it is a very effective method for collecting information, and this information is particularly collected from SMEs in presence of our developers and testers. So here the entire team, whoever is present in the JAT session, they provide their feedback as what is feasible, not feasible, difficult, or to achieve. All this kind of feedback has been provided. Here the BA is there who will just do a requirement elicitation part. That is, his main role can be as a scribe or as a facilitator. Like scribe means he can just collect the information what all has been discussed in the during the JAT session, or he can be a facilitator, like he'll make sure that the discussion is going correctly on track and not off track. So before this JAT session, the BA he himself has to understand what is as is analysis he has to do of the system. He has to prepare his questions and also provide these questions to the SMEs first. The agenda needs to be provided to the SMEs so that they are well prepared to understand and to discuss the questionnaires which are going to be answered during the JAT session. And during the JAT session, the BA he will just note down all the questions and answers to whatever the questions he had for that particular system. And then after JAT session, he will be filtering all the information, and then we would be putting. He would be, checking out whether all his questions have been answered or not. This is actually what is JAT sessions.
Okay. Pramod, do you want to answer the same question? You have not participated in this yet. That's a good response to Rupali. Pramod, can you hear me? Mohsin?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, good, please.
Yeah, I would say JAD brings together the both sections in your organization, like IT and business, to meet the requirements what we have planned, and these people are customized plans to complete what we have actually planned to, and avoid the time which is required to meet the process, and try to reduce the cost and even the errors which take place in a long time process. So basically this combines with both sections in the organization, like IT and business, to reduce the time and money. And there's a whole lot of process taken under JAD in detail in accomplishing that.
Okay. I mean, broadly, like I said, one broad feedback what I have for most of you is you have an idea about the concept, but it's a problem articulating. So you're not able to clearly say that crisply answer that question, right? So you need to prepare more for your interviews. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So
you mean to say we need to be in detail with our answers, right?
Not just be
Can you
detailed,
tell us
but
what the answers should be, because JAS sessions are basically workshops where all the team members, like SMEs, stakeholders, BAs, QAs, testers, like everybody is there, and they and from that workshop, BAs generally gather all the requirements. My answer to an interviewer will be like this: how should I answer? What is the best way to answer? Can you tell us that?
Yeah. So JAD again stands for Joint Application Development, and so ideally the team members in a JAD would be representation from your business side, from the technical side, and even from the testing side, right? So you would basically figure out what the requirement is and whether it's feasible or not, and you finalize onto the requirement within the session itself. So the main advantage of a JAT session would be that you save on your time, right? So you're avoiding all those back and forth, whether it's feasible or not, and how much time you would require for doing that. So all those decisions can be taken in the meeting, right? Now, the context in which you would generally use a JAT session is where you already have something in place, and then you want to figure out whether some requirement can be fitted into that existing architecture or not. So there, the inputs from the technical team are required. Okay, so ideally you would conduct a JAT session wherein you want to figure out whether that particular requirement, what is coming out from the customer, is feasible, or if you have, what are the various options available to meet that, right? So all that could actually be discussed in a JAT session, right? So rather than have captured the requirement, and then when you go to the development team and then they say these options, this cannot be done in this particular way, right? Then you'll have to go back to your your SME again and rework on the requirements, right? All this can be avoided if you actually have a JAT session. So because you have all those various perspectives coming in, you can finalize and then freeze on the requirement right at that meeting itself, right? That way you save on to the time. Okay, so there is no one definition what you should look at. Try to explain that. Govinda. Hello, guys, can you hear me? All right. So I thought I was disconnected. Sorry for that. So so try to explain the concept, right? So broadly talk about what it is, and then how would you how would you implement that, and then what are the advantages, in what context would you use it. If you answer all that, I think that's good enough, and it not be a textbook definition that you exactly tell the same thing over there, right? So consider it as a discussion. Try that, consider that somebody wants to understand how would you conduct a JAT session, so explain it to him. So it need not be a textbook definition that okay, exactly this is the JAT session means so and so. All right. So that is what I would suggest. Okay. So guys, I think should we have one more session to complete this mock interviews, because I find a lot of your responses are very at a very basic level. I mean, I would say you have problems in your articulation, right? So you're not able to.
Sir,
Yes.
probably I would like to just give a suggestion over here. Suppose like if you give us the questionnaires which you would be asking us, probably we all would just go through it and then articulate whatever the answers we have, and then we can discuss. So in that way everybody would be prepared. This is what I feel.
Right. So, but I've been doing that during the sessions also, right? So whenever we cover the topic, I clearly tell you that these are the interview questions. You could get the questions on.
Yeah, you're right, but like at the class somehow we missed that. But it's better like the way Bali is saying, if you'll give us a questionnaire and we prepare answers accordingly, if we are in much better situation to speak when the interviewer asks all these questions.
All right, we'll do that. Admin, sorry, I didn't get somebody who was talking there, logged in as admin. Who is this? So who logged in as admin? I think you're trying to say something and we interjected. Hello. Manju, is that you?
No, it's Andy, sir.
Hi. Andy, is that you? And if you're talking, we're not able to hear you. Let me type in a message to him. Yeah. Sandy, if you have any feedback or anything which you want to say, I think you're talking and then we interrupted you. Anyway, so next Monday, I think we'll have a follow-up session wherein we would, again look at these questions that that we have asked, right? At least I want you to be a little more prepared and while I gather that you have a broad understanding about the topic, that articulation is missing out, right? So you need to work on that, right? So the best way is, okay. I want you to give questions to them now and tell them to prepare each and every one have to talk. All right. Yeah. So yeah, that's what we decided, Andy. Anyway, so I'll anyway um, point out the questions what you could get in each of these topics, right? And then you can uh,
Thank you, Rajesh.
work on the responses, right? Yeah, I think Andy is also giving you some pointers. So okay. All right, I'll send out that list, and then you all would get it through email, right? And then you would work on.
Probably in weekend we can just prepare it so that Monday's class would be a good one.
Yeah. So yeah, by your morning time, I think you should be getting those questions, right? And prepare it over the weekend. We'll have one more follow-up session, and I think you need to prepare also for your uh, you know. You should be clear about all these topics because we have covered that in depth, right? So either I could gather that you understood the topic, but it's a problem with the articulation. That's where my major feedback is, right? So you need to prepare for your interviews. So it's not just knowing the topic, but also letting the interviewer know that you know it. Okay. So unless you are able to articulate it correctly, you'll uh, have problems clearing the interviews. Maybe you'd be able to do the job, but unless you're clearing the interview, you won't get that chance, right? So yeah, so put in that effort. So it's not just understanding, but also expressing it. So that's something which most of you have to work on. Okay. So have a nice weekend and spend some time on this over the weekend. We'll discuss it on Monday and then continue on to the rest of the topics. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone. Manju, can you hold on? Maybe we'll talk a few minutes after the participants log off. Manju, even Andy, if you can do that, so we can work out on what needs to be done. The rest of you, please log off. Manju, you there? Andy? Hello? Mm, no. No, I'm not able to hear you. Raidu, you there? Raidu? Anybody from big classes? Hello. Okay, Andy, if you can hear me, I was thinking, let's connect for a few minutes and then see, what is it that you want to achieve. Because I found that before we started this session, there was a disconnect. So my understanding was you want me to explain about what kind of questions, they could expect. And I think Manju had a different opinion. He wanted to check whether they are able to answer it or not, right? So let's plan for that. If you can clearly tell me that this is what you're expecting, I can align the sessions accordingly, right? So there won't be any disconnect. So I just wanted to have that quick chat with you guys to clear up those differences. I hope you can hear me, Handy. Can you? All right.
Raju?
Yeah. Now I can hear you. Good. Hello. I think you're on mute again.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
You can hear me now, right?
Yes.
Okay. So, this is what I want to do. So let's say, we have 10, 11 students. Now, when you are giving training, right? Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. So it's like one-way traffic. Now, they are listening. We don't even know if anyone is listening or not. If they are log on and, we have no idea what what they might be doing.
Right.
Right? So, we are, obviously spending time, your energy and training and everything, but we want like these guys to be serious and they should, because what happens is a guy took 8 months training in .NET and he doesn't know what is .NET.
Okay.
So, he might be going in the training, but he is doing nothing there.
Right.
Even in the classroom training, because the guys can sit, listen, and that's it.
Right.
So, we are basically trying to do our best, obviously for these guys, not for us.
Right.
But because of the time invested, money invested, we want to make sure that, they also like, doing the same input. So what you have to do is, this is the best way and the best way for a training thing. So for an example, you really explain them the first week, how do you gather requirements, what are JAG sessions, what are all the techniques, and then, what are functional, non-functional requirements, you explain all those things. So what you would have done is, but if it's not done now, we have to do it. So every week, like 4 days should be, you are explaining them, whatever you are explaining. And the 5th day, you have to do this kind of interview. It's not for the interview preparation, first of all. It is not to clear the interview. It is just whatever you have taught, they have to just speak, even theory, whatever they want to speak, they have to speak. Right. I know these answers are absolutely not good for the interview, but right now we are not preparing them for the interview. That's what I wanted to clear. I told Manju, I told everyone 10 times that this is not to clear the interview. That thing will come a lot later because,
so
these are babies right now.
Yeah. So I think I think it's good that you made it clear. Now that
so basically what you have to do is, please clarify with them that, so and they have to understand, if they don't know the questions, I just explain the same questions, or we can add 10 questions, and we can actually ask the same questions, and all. So let's say there are 10 questions. What is JAS session? What is BRD? What is FRD? What is non-functional functional requirements? How do you gather the requirements? What are the JAS sessions? Why you do the JAS sessions? So let's say these 7-8 questions are there. You can give them the questions. They should take all the notes what is done in last 7-8 days, and every single person, Pramod, Akhil, doesn't matter, whoever, you have to ask. Let's say we start with Akhil. So you are going to ask these 8 questions with Akhil. Akhil will answer these 8 questions, whatever he knows. I don't care, he answers wrong, good, bad, worse, whatever. and then you will ask the same 8 questions to the other person. No exceptions. The person has to answer. Whether he gives the answer, he doesn't give the answer, wrong, right, whatever he does.
All right. I think, yeah.
And that way, this is made clear, like whatever 4 days you are going to teach, the 5th day is going to be, questions. And you can give them the questions, 4 days, that these are the questions we're going to ask tomorrow. So all they have to do is, it's like 2 plus 2 is equal to 4 they are doing. They are not doing out of we don't want the interview answers right now.
All right. I get what you're trying to say. So whatever has been covered,
they know, okay, first of all, they don't even, do they know what is dash session? Dash session is meeting. So they have to clarify, and then you can clarify. Jazz sessions, you're talking so much of English, but it's just a meeting between different people, and the different people are stakeholders, SMEs. So unko samajh mein aana chahiye. They need to understand basic stuff. They go through all these theories, and ultimately yahi nahi pata, that's only a meeting thing. It's not like a technical term. They consider everything like a technical term. And BA has zero technical stuff.
Right. So that's anyway. So see, we did cover that. The challenge is that a few of them are active in the sessions, and the rest of them are very passive.
Yeah, I understand, but when you will ask each and every person, he has to speak.
Yeah. So I think I'll enforce that going forward every week.
Every week. Or agar wo nahi bolta, if he doesn't speak, right? I mean, if the person doesn't want to speak, and because see, you have taught so much of things. All we are asking them to learn is how do you gather the requirement, what is, and like a 6th class person will also able to speak these things.
Right.
I mean,
and I'll take that feedback going forward every week. On Fridays we'll have this session.
But clear this thing is, we are not here to give right now interview, it's not a preparation of interview. It's just a preparation of what you are teaching. They just have to. And again, they cannot speak, and we don't want you to speak, like the way you speak, but something, what is jazz sessions? They should know, okay, it's a meeting arranged between this. If they speak this thing, if they speak generic like words, I will be the happiest person, because I just want to make sure they understand that it's a document, it's a meeting, or whatever it is. And then the buzzwords and like that good answers they can learn later on. That is, once you know the basic stuff, then you can obviously add the masala later on.
All right. I think now I think we're aligned that way.
We are aligned that way. So because I don't know, Manju was able to communicate what I wanted to.
I think I just wanted to have that quick chat with you, because there are 2 more people in between us. Right, so like it became a Chinese whisper. It goes to Manju, it goes to Raidu, and then from Raidu it comes to me.
Yeah.
Well, and if you had this discussion, I can clearly understand what is it that you want, and then we'll align to that. The second thing also, Andy, I was thinking is I'm anyway giving them assignments, but I'm not able to enforce them, right? So I asked them to create some documents, or based on what we discussed. Like I gave them a brief about use cases. So I wanted them to create one at least, so that they can actually think through it. A few of them did, but most of them didn't. So I want somebody to enforce that.
Yeah, because both what you are thinking about use case diagrams and assignments doing, that is going to be like that is really like top of the world. That if they can answer what is basic jazz session, basic if they don't know the basic stuff, how they can go to that level.
No, but anyway, that is what is being taught in the course. I don't assume that they know anything else, and so whatever I'm teaching, I think they can prepare the use cases from that. So because I enforce that from other institutes, so I'm suggesting this. So I want you to put in a word to your folks saying that if the trainer gives an assignment, do that. And a lot of them I have that case studies also, but this is not being effective because most of them are passive listeners. So that is where the assignments.
Actually, the reason for that is because the first 10 days or whatever days was there, you were talking and no one else was there. When Rupali guy talks, it doesn't like make a good impact for the team, because we don't want one person to talk only.
Yeah, right. So I try to keep everybody engaged, but that's not happening. So assignments, and I think the suggesting what you have said.
That will happen. So when you take the class on Monday or whatever, the first sentence you have to say is ki whatever I am going to like teach and things you have to prepare, because I am going to tomorrow, ask each and every person on this topic these questions, quickly, like maybe one question, two questions. Because see, if you tell them this thing that every person I will ask, then what will happen is they have to prepare because they have no choice.
Right.
If you don't do that, then they will not prepare.
True. I think, I'll enforce that going forward. At least, we're halfway through now. I'll ensure that.
Yeah, because I just wanted to let you know another thing is, I have been doing 18 years. I've been in US.
All right.
So I know each and every client, projects, interview questions, everything. So the things you have covered till now are the most important part.
Right.
Because these are the questions asked in the interview, gathering requirements, what are the problems you face, functional, non-functional gap analysis. Yeah. This is the core of the things. Use case are not asked, and neither any of the projects, you have to do use cases. So that is like they should just know what is use case or whatever. They don't have to go into details. If they don't go, I mean, it's good for the practice, but whatever you have taught them till now, it's core of everything here.
Right.
That is actually required for the interview and on job also. There is nothing else required, because agile and whatever you will explain, and the questions here are just what is agile, what is sprint. So this is not much anyways, on the agile, because people, agile is so easy that people can answer 10,000 things, but they don't ask agile anything. They will just ask always about core stuff, like like requirements gathering, gas sessions.
All right. So I'll enforce that. Anything else, Andy? I think from a course point of view, anything which you want to share?
Yeah, course point. So that's why I'm saying till now, whatever you have done is like 99% which are asked in the interviews and on the projects there. Because every single project they are going to join is going to be a change request. The person will say, okay, to change this 60 to 12 months, just put it on the thing and done, boom. There is no diagrams created here in this country. Nothing happens on those sort. There's very rare projects where the diagrams are there.
Yeah. I've been in this industry for more than 10, 12 years now. So I understand that. Now, so that way, most of this course content is coming from my experience, right? So though
absolutely. Your course contents, everything is absolutely great. But the thing is that these guys, like these are babies. They don't.
I get it. Right.
They don't
So
anything.
so that's what I will have to contextualize to their needs, and then let them know only what they need to know. Right? So they need to don't need to know the.
Yeah, because if we start talking about like actor classes, object, and I'm sure there's nothing to there's no point But use case diagrams you already taught. So I think till now you have taught everything what comes in BA. I don't think so. There's anything left besides the agile and the waterfall.
Yeah. So agile anyway we would cover that.
No, I know, but
I would also cover some basics about testing, because sometimes.
Absolutely. No, what I'm saying is, that testing, agile, SQL, whatever, we want to cover, but till now is the core. 90% is the most important part right now.
Yeah.
And in 99% of the interviews, they will ask you, have you testing? You can write test cases, and all they have to say is we collaborated with QA teams in the UAT teams, and we can write the test cases. And test cases is a simple, thing. So there is nothing much, because BA interviews testing, they don't focus much. All they need to know if you can write test cases or execute test cases.
Yeah.
But that will come on later on. What I'm saying is the most important part is, these part, and I want whatever you have taught, right? You can just maybe draft 10 questions, and every single person has to speak. They have to prepare their answers and then speak. That's fine if they read and whatever they do. At least they know it's coming from their mouth. And I want to see that they're alive people. They are there to listening or not listening or what they are doing.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Okay, then thank you so much for your time. And hopefully, because the thing is that once this is over, it all comes to our burden. Every day we have to.
I know. So we have to be aligned together so that we crack this. Otherwise, we are working on silos. I'll do my job, you'll do your job, and then we'll start.
Because one thing is important is I know. They have to be serious like Rupali, but not like 90% of the people are not like Rupali. So anyways, we cannot consider her. It's an exceptional case, but all the other guys have to be. These are decent guys, but still those decent guys are they will prepare more. If we tell them that you have to prepare, because if you ask them, okay, Akhil, tell me these 5 questions, or Pramod, tell me these questions, then they will have to answer. Even if they have to answer, even they answer wrong, but they have to answer. So they will definitely prepare in that way that, oh, you know what, I have to answer tomorrow, so I better be read something or prepare.
Sure, we'll ensure that happens, Andy.
Nice
Okay.
talking to you.
Thank you so much, Raju. Thanks for your time.
Excellent. Have a nice weekend. Bye.
You too. Bye bye.